Right, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I am doing my MotoGP 2026 rider lineup predictions. Now, I wasn't going to do one of these videos this year because everyone's got a contract for next year. It seemed like the rider lineup would be pretty set in stone, there'd only be a few changes. However, in the past month or so, the rider market has completely exploded. About half of the grid wants to leave their current contract seemingly, and it seems like there's going to be all sorts of moves all over the place. So with that, I've decided to bring this back for another year, and these are my 2026 MotoGP rider lineup predictions. Let's get straight into it. We're going to start with Ducati because I think they are by far the easiest manufacturer to predict their lineup next year. As of right now, Pecco Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Alex Marquez, Fermin Aldeguer and Fabio Di Giannantonio all have contracts for next year, and I firmly believe that they are all going to stay at their current seats for next year. I have seen some rumours of Pecco Bagnaia being linked elsewhere to maybe Aprilia or for Yamaha, but considering he's a double world champion and he's got a contract for next year, it'd be extremely stupid I think for Ducati and for Bagnaia to want to split early. Maybe after 2026 there could be a potential move, but for next year I think Bagnaia is staying where he is. And for the other four, I think they're having good enough seasons to warrant staying. I know Digi's having a bit of an underwhelming season, but it's hardly been bad enough to warrant sacking, so I think all five of them are going to stay, and the only question is who's going to be Digi's teammate next year, and I've got the boring answer. I think it's going to be Franco Morbidelli. I know there's been rumours of Pedro Acosta going to that VR46 team, however I think it would be in Ducati's best interest really to keep Morbidelli around. He's part of the VR46 Academy, which is automatically a bonus for him, and he's also doing really well this season. So I really don't see Morbidelli being let go. I think he'll sign a new contract for next year, and I don't think Acosta's going to get that seat. Even though I feel like Ducati should go for him, but something tells me they won't. We'll move on to Aprilia next. There's been a lot of talk about Aprilia's rider lineup next year because of course Jorge Martin has announced that he wants to leave Aprilia. After a grand total of one race for them, he's decided he's had enough. He's decided the bike isn't good enough, but Aprilia just haven't been good enough this year for him and he wants to leave. And I think he's going to stick to his word. I really don't think Aprilia should try to keep him when he's already announced he wants to leave. Keeping around an unhappy rider is just going to cause more problems. And Martin seems pretty set on leaving, and I think he will have other options. So I think Martin is leaving Aprilia, so the question is who is going to replace him? I've gone with Enea Bastianini. Bastianini seems desperate to leave KTM. So far this season, I haven't heard him say one positive thing about that KTM bike. He has been by far the one who's struggling the most on that bike this year. He's had nowhere near the pace of the others, and he's just not getting used to the bike. It's clear that the KTM is a bad fit for him, and I think Aprilia would be a much better fit. We need to remember that I'm pretty sure that Bastianini was Aprilia's first choice to be in their team this year instead of Bezzecchi. It's just that Bastianini took the offer at KTM and sort of panicked a bit. However, I think Bastianini to move to Aprilia would be the right move. It'd be one that works out for all parties. KTM can get in someone who suits their bike better. This is just a move which makes complete sense for me. And also, Bastianini is Italian and Aprilia are an Italian team, so I feel like it's just a match made in heaven. And I think Bastianini would do really well because I feel like his riding style suits the Aprilia. I of course have Marco Bezzecchi staying at Aprilia. I don't see any reason why he would leave. He's not announced he wants to leave. He's doing a good enough job on that bike. He's got a contract. He's not leaving. And I've got the same for Ayagura on the Trackhouse. He's had a really good season so far. There's no reason for him to leave Trackhouse. I considered maybe putting him up to the factory team, but I think considering he's still in his debut year, I feel like Aprilia would rather keep him in the Trackhouse team for another year. However, a big discussion point is who's going to be his teammate next year. And there's been a lot of talk about Manuel Gonzalez taking Ralph Fernandez's spot at Trackhouse next year. However, despite that, I have got Ayagura's teammate to be Ralph Fernandez. I just think they're going to stick with him. I think the main reason being he's got a contract for next year. And Aprilia, they're not the big money bags like Ducati, Honda, Yamaha. They've got one of the smallest budgets on anyone on the grid. They'd find it hardest to terminate a contract of all the manufacturers. And as well as this, I know that he's not had the greatest season, but we can't say Ralph Fernandez has been terrible. He's still shown some flashes throughout this season and last season. I don't know. I feel like it'd be harsh to sack him, and considering he's got a contract for next year, I think Aprilia are going to stick out with him. And also, I feel like Manu Gonzalez might play it smart and do what Ayagura did and wait for a good offer to come for MotoGP. For Manuel Gonzalez, he's very young, he's 22 still, and to move to MotoGP now when there's going to be a regulation change a year later might be a bit of a waste of time because you spend all year getting used to the bike and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. Yeah, I don't think Gonzalez is going to take a move to MotoGP for next year. I think he'll stick it out in Moto2 and go for that World Championship, especially if he doesn't win it this season. So yeah, I think Raul Fernandez will take that final Trackhouse spot in what will truly be his last chance to impress in MotoGP. We'll move on to Honda now, and I think this is the manufacturer which has had the most discussion about it in terms of their rider lineup for next year. No one knows what's going to happen at Honda next year, what their rider lineup's going to look like. There's potential for all four of their current team to change or be on a different bike. We'll start with the factory team, and the first person I've got is Jorge Martin. He's announced that he wants to leave Aprilia, and realistically his only two options are Yamaha and Honda, and to me I think Honda just seems like the most likely option. Honda need a star rider to take them to the next level, and I think for them they will identify Jorge Martin as that person to take them to the next level. He's the reigning world champion, remember. He's a quality rider, easily top 5 on the grid. Probably top 3, I'd say. He's one of the best on the grid, as long as he comes back from his injury alright. Yeah, I feel like this is just the move that makes the most sense for Jorge Martin. Yamaha, I just can't see him going there, and he's already burnt bridges with KTM and for Ducati in the past. I have seen some rumours saying he'll go to Tech 3 KTM. I refuse to believe them. I think Honda, the factory Honda team, is the right seat for Jorge Martin. So I think he's going there. And joining him, I have gone with Joan Mir. Joan Mir, of course, has a contract for next year, and that is the main reason I've got him staying with Honda. I do think that if he didn't have a contract, Honda would be looking to upgrade him. I was really considering putting Pedro Acosta in this Honda seat, maybe instead of Martin, or, you know, the dream team of Martin and Acosta. That'd be a quality lineup. However, I think the fact that Joan Mir, firstly, he's a world champion. Secondly, the fact he's got a contract for next year, and quite a heavy paying contract as well. He's on a lot of money. I think Honda will be reluctant to let him go for that much money. And also, I know his points tally isn't exactly great this year, but he's been quite fast this year. He's been easily Honda's second fastest rider. Yeah, I do still think that Joan Mir is a really good rider, and I think Honda will keep him around for one more year, for his final year of his contract. This of course means that I've got Johann Zarco staying on the LCR Honda team. There's been a lot of talk about Johann Zarco moving up to the factory Honda team. However, I don't think that should happen. I really think that Honda should prioritise getting a young rider in to be on that factory bike instead of Johann Zarco, who, while he's doing really well at the moment, he is 34, he's not got long left in him. We've seen it all the time with older riders. They can go from being amazing to absolute dog shit in an instant. We saw it with Cal Crutchlow. He went from winning races in 2019 to being out of a seat by the end of 2020. Older riders can fall off a cliff fast, and I do think that Johann Zarco is approaching that at some point. I think for Honda to commit their long-term future in the factory team to him would be a bit silly really, and considering the fact he's going to be on the factory bike anyway on the LCR Honda, I think it would just be best for him to stick on the team he's currently at. I think it'd be pretty silly to move him to the factory team for 1 year really. I think he should stay on the LCR Honda team and he'll do just as good a job as he would do on the factory team, so I think Zarco's staying at LCR, and I've also got the same with Somkat Chamdra. I think he's staying on the LCR Honda team as well. As much as his performances have been pretty shocking this year, and the fact that he really doesn't deserve to be on the grid, I really don't see that seat being given to someone else. It's clear that Idemitsu LCR Honda bike is given to the best Asian talent on the grid available. Ayagura's not going to that team anytime soon, so Somkat Chamdra's by far the best other one. The best other option's probably, I don't know, Ayumu Sasaki. He's nowhere near good enough. So Somkat Chamdra, he's going to stay, despite his poor performances. Yeah, Chamdra's staying at LCR Honda. We'll move on to Yamaha now, and starting with the factory team, of course it goes without saying, Fabio Quartararo is staying at Yamaha. I would be absolutely amazed if he leaves. He's got a really expensive contract for next year. There's no chance he's leaving, especially now that Yamaha have turned a corner, they seem a lot better. He's not leaving. However, joining him, I've gone with Pedro Acosta. I think that Yamaha will go big and go for 2 world-class riders on their factory lineup. I think Pedro Acosta, it's obvious he wants to leave KTM. KTM are in such a mess financially. Their future in the sport is so unknown. I really think it'd be very silly for Acosta to trust his future in the hands of them. And I think he knows this. He wants to leave, clearly. I know I made a previous video saying he should join Honda, but I think they're going to prioritise getting Jorge Martini in through the door. I've already, of course, said he's not going to Ducati, so I think his only other option is to go to Yamaha. And I think this would be a really good fit. I feel like Yamaha could maybe do with an upgrade on their current rider lineup, because apart from Quartararo, the rest of their rider lineup isn't very good. They're all a bit old and washed. Acosta would be a fresh new face, someone who could potentially challenge Quartararo. They could have a truly world-class rider lineup going forwards, and one that, you know, both riders could potentially challenge each other for world championships. I think Acosta would be a huge upgrade on Alex Rins, and I think out of the options, I think going to Yamaha is the one that makes the most sense for Acosta. So I think Pedro Acosta's going to Yamaha, the factory Yamaha team. We'll move on to the Pramac team now, and the big news today has been announced that Toprak Razgatlioglu, I think I've said that right, he's been announced that he's going to that team in 2026. So Toprak is my first person in Pramac. Of course, the conversations of will he, won't he, have been going on for ages now. He's been rumoured to join MotoGP for ages, but it's finally over the line. It's been announced, it's confirmed, he's joining MotoGP next year, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he does. I'm looking forward to it. It's a good move from Yamaha. I think he's a massive upgrade on both their current riders. However, I do think they'll keep one of their current riders. I've gone with Jack Miller staying at the Pramac Yamaha team. The rumours and the papers are saying that Jack Miller is off to World Superbike. However, I don't believe this. I think he'll stay with Pramac Yamaha. I think they'll prioritise keeping him instead of Oliveira. Jack Miller's performances have actually been pretty good this season, much better than Oliveira. He's shown some serious pace in qualifying, and he's brought it home to get a few good race results like in Britain and in America. He's had some standout performances, and I think that's going to be enough to keep him on the grid for next year. I think he'll be a much better option for Pramac than Oliveira, who has suffered from injuries again this season, and even when he's been a bit fitter, he's not exactly been the most impressive rider on the grid. He's had a very underwhelming season, so I think Jack Miller would be the best option for Pramac, and I think they're going to keep him. And finally, we have KTM. Of course, I've already said that Acosta and Bastianini are leaving KTM, in my opinion. I do think that Brad Binder and Vinales will stay at their current teams. There's no reason for them to leave. Vinales, I do think, even though he's doing well, he is slowly winding down his career. I don't see anywhere else he could go. I think KTM is the final manufacturer he'll race for. So I don't see him leaving, and Brad Binder's been with KTM for his entire MotoGP career. He's not leaving either. Which means there's 2 spots for KTM, one on the factory team, one on the Tech 3 team. And there are 3 current riders who I've got missing out so far. Luca Marini, Alex Rins and Miguel Oliveira. There's 3 riders that need to fit into 2 spots here. And the first one I've got is Alex Rins. I think he'll go to the factory team. I think if Acosta and Bastianini do leave KTM, they're going to really struggle to find quality riders to replace them, considering the fact that there's no guarantee they'll be in the sport beyond 2026. They've even said themselves they won't be on the grid in 2027 if they can't afford it. That's not exactly, filling me with confidence, and I don't think it'll fill much riders with confidence. I think they'll only be able to pick up riders who are, desperate to be on the grid. Out of the 3 I just mentioned, I do think Alex Rins would be the best option for KTM. Now, Alex Rins, I have got him leaving Yamaha, and I think there should be no surprise in that. Alex Rins has been pretty poor this season so far. Like last year, he's just not been able to get any sort of good results. It's clear that he's been beaten up by injuries, and I think the best of Alex Rins has gone, and I think that Yamaha should look to upgrade him. And I think he'll land himself a spot at KTM. I don't know, I feel like KTM will be desperate to get someone in their factory team, and I feel like Alex Rins is the best person who would take that seat currently. So I'm not too confident with this one, but I feel like out of all the options for KTM, this is the one that makes the most sense. So I've got Alex Rins going to the factory KTM team. And finally, who's going to partner Maverick Vinales on the Tech 3 KTM? Is it going to be Miguel Oliveira or Luca Marini? I've gone with neither. I think it'll be Aaron Canet. I think Aaron Canet is a quality rider and somebody who is probably deserving of being on the MotoGP grid. And I think this year would be his last opportunity to go up to MotoGP, really. I feel like if he waited till next year, it'd be too late for him. I feel like Canet is desperate to go to MotoGP. According to the TNT Sports commentators, he thinks he should already be in MotoGP. So I feel like if he was to get an offer from KTM, he'd take it in an instant. And I do think he's a better option for KTM than both Luca Marini and Miguel Oliveira. Canet is a quality rider. He has managed to get over his lack of winning curse. He's really in the championship race. He doesn't make too many mistakes. He doesn't crash anywhere near as much as he used to. It's clear that he's matured a lot over his Moto2 days, and I think he is ready to take the step up to MotoGP. And I think if KTM were to offer him, he'd take it in a heartbeat, unlike some other riders on the grid. And I do think that Canet to KTM is just the move that makes the most sense. I see that happening a lot more than I see Oliveira or Marini moving there, which of course means I've got Oliveira and Luca Marini missing out. I'll talk about Oliveira first. He's of course been shafted by injuries again this season. However, even when he's been fit, I've not been impressed by his performances at all. I think his time in MotoGP is up. It's clear that the injuries have completely beaten the best out of him. I think he'll be heading towards World Superbike or something. I think his time's up on the MotoGP grid, which is a shame because on his day he was a phenomenal rider, but he's clearly past his best. And yeah, he's been by far the worst of the Yamahas this season. I know he's been injured and all, but 3 championship points? Come on, it's a bit embarrassing. I think he's on his way out. And as well with Oliveira, I don't see him going back to KTM, and I think that'd be his only option. KTM have already fired him in the past. I don't see him going back there, and that's the only real option for me for Oliveira. I don't see him going anywhere else, so yeah, I think his time on the grid is done. And Luca Marini, this is extremely harsh having him miss out, but I think that the injury he's just sustained is the worst possible thing I think could have happened to him. Because he is out of a contract this year on Honda, and you know, when he's out of contract, he needs to be on the grid, showing Honda why he's worth keeping. But with his injury, he won't be able to fight for his spot, and I think Honda will look to upgrade him. And considering he's just a bit of a bang average rider, I think that other teams just won't be very appealed to sign him. I think he'll just struggle to find a spot because no one will think, oh yes, I know who I should sign. Luca Marini, the man with precisely 0 race victories. I feel like KTM at least would much rather go with Alex Rins, who has 6 race victories to his name, compared to Luca Marini, who has 0. And I do think Alex Rins is just a more talented rider anyway. Yeah, it's harsh on Marini, but it's just a brutal world of motorcycle racing. One injury can completely, end your career, and I think that's sadly what's going to happen to him. But with that, those are my MotoGP 2026 rider lineup predictions. Yeah, some interesting ones there. I'm not entirely confident that all of these are going to be correct. However, if the grid was to line up like this next year, it'd be very exciting. I'd be very interested to see how a lot of these would do. But anyways, I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments. What do you think the MotoGP grid will look like next year? Have I got this completely wrong? What transfers do you think will occur? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel while you're there. I just want to say quickly a massive thank you for the support on my last video. All the likes, the comments and the support has been mind-blowing. Thank you so much for it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.